virtual conference for the Charleston conference. My name is Faye Holst, and I'm the communications manager at IOP Publishing. I will host this session, and this is about publishers and librarians and how they can work together to tackle research misconduct. So first up is Joel Thornton. He's Associate Dean for Collections and Scholarly Communication at the Marriott Library of the University of Utah. And he will discuss the challenges he faces, or his library faces, when addressing research misconduct. And then we will also be hearing from Lauren Flintoft, a research integrity manager at IOP Publishing, and she will be sharing insights into what goes on behind the scenes of research integrity investigations, and of course, how publishers and librarians can work better together on research integrity issues. Joel, take it away.
Ray, thank you so much for the introduction. The erosion of public trust has emerged as a significant concern within the scholarly publishing industry. A key driver of that erosion is the paper mill crisis, which threatens research integrity and has resulted in thousands of journal articles being retracted by major publishers at an alarming rate. Although complicated, we'll have the responsibility to uphold the research ecosystem, which relies heavily on maintaining the research integrity of the scholarly record. Measures have been taken to restore trust. However, much more needs to be done. And today I'll be speaking from the library's perspective, more specifically, the library's role at the University of Utah in upholding publishing integrity. And next, we'll begin with the following case study. And as we look at this case study, I'll give you a moment to kind of look at this. But the question is, how should we proceed? Here are the pertinent facts. An article was retracted due to peer review issues, not scientific errors. The author claims no wrongdoing and believes retraction is unjust. There are concerns over credibility in the next steps, and the author seeks guidance on how to address the situation and file a complaint. So again, the question is, how would you respond? But before addressing the issue, I think it's important to ask the question, what are the roles? How do we clarify the roles? And this was especially true at the University of Utah, since this was the first time that the library was being asked to provide guidance on this type of issue. Thus, answering the first question was a challenge. And why was it a challenge? And why were we consulted? We did not have a clear process for addressing such matters at the time. The Research Integrity Office contacted us, the library, because they know we have relationships with the publishers. However, a link did not exist between the University of Utah's Research Integrity Officer and the publisher's Research Integrity Officer. The library served as a connector. In fact, in many cases, a direct relationship is non-existent between the two research integrity offices, the publisher and the university, which is why the library was consulted. Our research officer didn't know where to turn for support. Hence, there's a tremendous value in our relationship with publishers that extend beyond content licensing and acquisition. Thus, I can't emphasize enough establishing and leveraging those relationships even before crisis. The second question entails determining how can we add value to the process. In this case, we are able to provide guidance regarding the types of analysis that could be conducted to increase assurance that the author did not engage in misconduct. Typical analysis included interviewing the researcher to clarify the researcher's role in authorship. What were the specific contributions to authorship? Reviewing the author's CV and research information management tools for recent publication activities to analyze unusual spikes in research. And reviewing the retracted article for evidence of misconduct. These are just some examples. But next, we obtain a clear explanation from the publisher's research integrity officer regarding the reasons for retraction. and confirmation that the publisher has not alleged or investigated research misconduct. Finally, the scholarly communication and copyright librarian consulted with the author regarding the process for resubmitting the article for publication in another journal. Additionally, there are research integrity detection tools that have emerged, termed trust markers, to ensure that people are well informed as to the trust you can have in the work. And Lauren will go into more detail on this during her segment of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Joel. And to all those listening today. So firstly, I will provide a bit of information about the structure of my team and effectively what we do. So IOP Publishing has a dedicated research integrity team. If you could go on to the next slide, please, Faye. We have a beautiful graphic here to explain this further. So yes, we have a dedicated research integrity team who ensures that our products operate within expected industry standards and publish trustworthy, reproducible research. We're absolute experts, if I say so myself, who help resolve any potential issues relating to publication ethics, implement prevention strategies, and contribute to cross-industry working groups that help improve policy and standards in the industry. So the infographic on this slide maps out at a high level the areas we work on and sort of the overall structure. So the team is currently made up of 7 people in total who have a variety of backgrounds within publishing, such as legal, peer review, commissioning, etc., with some coming from different publishers. We even studied a variety of subjects from history to physics and biochemistry. You find with research integrity, you develop a particular specialism. For example, my areas are more corrections, that weird gap between research integrity and legal. These variations make us a strong team who are, between us, experts in all the areas of research integrity and publication ethics. Having the ability to draw upon our experience from other publishers and our networks means we're well positioned within the community of other publishers, professional whistleblowers, etc. We work across ebooks, conference series, content, and journals. So we're used to working with different content types, including published and unpublished content. Across these products, the areas we work on include prevention. So that includes policies and processes that prevent dubious content slipping through to publication and also make us undesirable to bad actors. For any cases that do crop up, we investigate on the product's behalf in line with COPE guidelines. We also source, test and implement research integrity detection tools, and we closely manage the relationships with those providers. We manage our corrections process and we train those internally and key external stakeholders on all things publishing ethics and RI related. We keep up to date with industry news through our contacts with other publishers, professional sleuths in the news. Another primary responsibility for us is to feed into industry guidance and outreach with other stakeholders in the industry. This means we don't just follow industry best practice, but help define it. And so, for example, our generative AI policy, we've taken a very pragmatic approach, and it considers how the situation with authors using AI will develop over the next 5 years, not just considering what the concerns are right now. We've been closely following discussions around AI and have found that our policies align with, the developments occurring in this area. Effectively, anything weird and wonderful sort of falls with our team. So next slide, please. Following on from this, I also thought it would be beneficial to provide a high-level overview of how just on average, a case is investigated by us. So again, I've mapped this out in the infographic on the slide. So first off, a complainant would make an allegation. This could be an internal staff member, editorial board member, author, or reader. The latter either contact us directly, or we often are notified of concerns via PubPeer. This is a forum that allows for anonymous comments and discussion about scholarly content. We do sometimes receive allegations directly from anonymous whistleblowers. While there has been some discussion for many years now about whether a complainant concealing their identity can be considered a responsible way to raise concerns and whether this affects how you handle the case, we investigate all allegations of ethical misconduct, be they anonymous or include their identity. The evidence or lack of any will speak for itself and determine if any conclusive action is required. We would then review the evidence to hand. We might need to ask for more information from the complainant, and we review the paper or manuscript, depending on the stage of the process, the details in our submission system, etc. We then use tools to help detect and verify concerns. We do use a wide range of tools, including cross-ref similarity check. This is actually our version of Turnitin, which of course many institutions use. We would then of course consult any other relevant teams internally, such as our legal team. The author is then contacted in objective and neutral terms to ask for an explanation. It's extremely important that we remain neutral in tone and phrasing so as to not effectively judge the authors before they've had the chance to respond. They should be given a true chance to provide their account of events. We would then review the evidence to hand coupled with the author's response. We consider whether the author's response is sufficiently explain the concerns raised and refute the allegations, or whether they are insufficient and concerns remain. We're finding with certain cases, if we have to ask for copies of original data and check, the metadata, this can help verify the validity of the research if this is called into question. So it may be that at this point we actually have to do some further investigation and conduct further checks. So we almost go back a few stages, and it could be that we check the evidence to hand and liaise with the authors several times over. We would then take any appropriate action. This is where cases can take many different turns. If we're investigating an authorship dispute, for example, it's more likely we would refer the case to the institution without taking any further action until we've received their conclusions on the matter. We can't arbitrate or judge all cases, so reaching out to the institution may be the most appropriate course of action. We also believe it's extremely important to advise authors on future best practice. So when they are informed of the outcome, be it a correction for a published work, or if unfortunately it is rejected from further consideration whilst it's been submitted, then we would always advise on this future best practice. This gives them the opportunity to fully understand and take on board what our expectations are, and go forward with submitting content that does align with those policies, that is original and impactful. Finally, we would inform the complainant of the outcome of the case. We try to be as transparent as possible, and not only inform the complainant and correct the content, but in the case of retracting content, we also inform Retraction Watch's retraction database, issue a comment to the article's PubPeer page, and we even amend the title of the article to add the term retraction so that it can be pulled through into discovery sites. So the end-to-end process can vary dramatically. It can take from a couple of weeks to almost several years at times, because our aim is to ensure we investigate fairly and thoroughly. A case can take however long it takes, not that we allow it to unduly become delayed. Time is very much of the essence, and we do understand that. The reasons a case can be delayed are usually due to a third party being involved, like the author's institution. Some authors very unfortunately threaten legal action or try and use other escalation routes to prevent us taking action. So this can at times cause a delay. Next slide, please. So now you have this context. We'll move on to the sticking points that we sometimes see on our side. So that first point that I've just sort of touched upon, it can be the author that is potentially maybe it's a lack of response, or as I mentioned, they make attempts to escalate the case further. So COPE guidelines stipulate that the author should be contacted for an explanation. We also strongly believe, given it's the author's work, they have the right to reply and should be afforded every opportunity to give their account of events. This means that if an author doesn't reply, it can delay the case. Some authors may have moved institutions, so they won't receive our emails to the email address we have on file. Some don't reply to our emails because they believe silence will prevent us from taking action. I can say this with confidence because there have been countless occasions where we've informed the authors of a correction after numerous attempts to contact them, and they then subsequently promptly respond. Especially if the allegations are publicly known, such as on PubPeer, a lack of conclusive action at times goes on. It can affect our credibility and the trust the readership have in the scholarly record. It's a difficult one because we're unable to share the details of the case to explain the delay, but the frustration the readership, rightly so, have towards the process can be in fact due to a lack of author response and not necessarily inaction from the publisher. Since silence also from the institution can also sometimes be a sticking point, my experience, as you would expect with our authors being affiliated with institutions all over the world with different cultural views towards research integrity, has been mixed. We contact institutions to report retractions in every instance, to report other misconduct, and sometimes to ask for support with cases, especially data fabrication and authorship disputes. We more often than not do not receive a reply. On some occasions, it could well be an issue on our side where we've contacted the wrong person. It can be hard for us to find the right contact details for the head of department or the dean and the research integrity officer. This can't account for all instances, though. This makes it hard for us to know whether further action has been taken on their side. If this hasn't occurred, it can perpetuate unethical practices. Finally, an inconsistency in policies between institutions and to our own policies is also another sticking point. The inconsistency between institutions, in my view, is usually associated with different motivations and cultural differences. In terms of the differences with us, the areas that stand out in particular often revolve around authorship. We have to abide by UK copyright law. This means only contributors who can be considered original creators of the work are rights holders and in turn authors. We follow ICMJ's guidelines, as do most publishers, which align with copyright law. There have been times where authors have explained, say, supervisors who haven't made a significant contribution to the work have been included as authors. They then receive conflicting guidance from us, which we can't change due to our compliance with the law. So you can see that these are quite problematic sticking points at times. Next slide, please. So moving on to key processes relevant for librarians. So what we've marked out on this slide, we have adopted Crossmark, which many other publishers have too. If you download a local copy of a PDF of an article and click the Crossmark icon, which for our articles is usually in the top left corner on the first page, it will update it to reflect any corrections and changes. This means you can make an informed assessment of the work when you come to cite it with any electronic version of the work. In a similar fashion, Get FTR is also a really useful tool. They also offer the ability for publishers to display whether a reference work has received a correction. So similarly, you can make that informed decision and there is that transparency around it. You may have also heard of this phrase in the press recently, this phrase trust markers. In keeping with this desire for transparency, publishers and other industry bodies are considering how to achieve this. One way is for publishers to display key information alongside an article, such as confirmation of which checks have been made and how many reviewers it's gone out to, etc. Next slide, please. So there are current support tools available to help explain, the processes and guidelines that we align to. So we've given some examples here. There are industry bodies, especially the Committee on Publication Ethics and STM. They have materials that, resource materials that will help you navigate research integrity issues. There are also publisher guidelines. These clearly set out the expectations that we hold authors account to when they submit to us, and this will further provide you with more information on research, how we view research integrity. We also offer interactive training workshops as part of our peer review excellence program that offer peer review training. It's an interactive session that includes case studies, so this offers an in-depth learning opportunity for librarians. Next slide, please. So the need for collaboration, research integrity teams and libraries. So the current situation that we've touched upon, research integrity teams at publishers primarily liaise with the research integrity officer or the dean / head of department. So there is that minimal contact with libraries. Of course, we feel this needs to change because we do in fact have shared goals. We both aim to uphold and strengthen research integrity. I think there really are numerous opportunities for mutual support and collaboration. And I certainly would welcome having these conversations to understand how we can support one another with our processes. And certainly given the examples that Joel referred to, the increase in paper mill activity, this is really critical timing. And I would, as I say, really welcome that dialogue so that we can work more closely together. Next slide, please. So I have provided a case study to help demonstrate the fact that there is that crossover. Just to give you a little bit of context, we had a situation where effectively we were informed a researcher was trading authorship for an article processing charge waiver. What that looked like was they were contacting other researchers. They were basically saying, I receive this waiver on a particular journal with IOP due to my university's transformative agreement. If you add me as the corresponding author to your paper, I will submit it. Now, they've not contributed to the work. This was a particularly challenging investigation. And I think what it really highlighted was it really is an opportunity for librarians and publishers to come together to hold one another to account in transformative agreements. Having stringent policies the institution needs to be held accountable to, such as in relation to APC waiver manipulation, would have meant the institution would have had more of an obligation to take action and investigate the case. They only responded after several chases to me, so it was a rather challenging case. Next slide, please. So why do we need to collaborate to increase publishing integrity? Some examples here: flagging concerning patterns of potential misconduct in content to publishers. This is absolutely something that librarians will come across, and we would absolutely welcome. Please do inform us if you come across any concerns. Educating students and researchers as to what correction notices are and how to look out for them. Of course, if your researchers can identify these, they can make that informed decision as to how they should view and draw upon that work. So this increased education piece would be particularly beneficial. We can provide a two-pronged approach with setting standards for one another in transformative agreements, as I've just mentioned, and assess which content to obtain based on trust markers. Now, these are only a handful of examples, and it's certainly something that we should absolutely consider further, because there will be countless others. So why is this important? This all helps advance science and society, ensuring researchers make that informed assessment of the scholarly record and build upon reproducible content. Thank you so much for listening. I will pass you back to Faye.
Yes, thank you, listeners. I have here a slide with the contact details of Lauren and Joel. And please reach out and don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any further questions after this session. Thank you and have a good day.